Hello everyone, welcome to episode 11 of Eldritch Castle. I entitle this episode Lurking Menace. Well, you'll see why here just shortly. I wanted to thank you for participating in this adventure. I'm really enjoying it. I do wish there were more people watching and playing along, but that's okay. I'm really glad for the hundreds of you that are participating in this. Well, I'm not going to reveal anything. No secrets are going to get let out, but I will say this. There have been a couple details, particularly in recent episodes, that I think are getting overlooked. They're subtle things. It might be worth going back and reviewing a couple episodes just to see if there are any hints or things that maybe deserve a little bit of attention. But you're doing pretty well. No big... Well, wait a minute. No, you've almost died twice. I don't know how much longer your luck is going to last. There are a couple things. I don't know if these are meta or not, but whatever. I think it's going to serve to enhance the overall experience. A couple points that I figure I should clarify. Yes, indeed, there is a timer running. I'm keeping track of all the time that you are spending in Castle Zdravno. I'm not going to say what exactly. Not going to say what the time limit is. That will happen in-game. You'll see narratively, but I did want to let you know that you do not have all the time in the world. And the second thing has to do with more the style of this adventure. You see, Eldritch Castle, at its core, is a mystery. Sure, there are some moments where there's adrenaline and action, there are monsters and combat encounters and traps. It's also sort of gothic and even a bit of horror here and there. It's atmospheric, but at its core it's a mystery. It's a thinking adventure. Things are not really balanced in the way that you would think of for a normal D&D game. You are just a wizard by yourself after all. So, creative solutions really is what you're looking for. Going headlong into straight up combat is often going to spell doom. So, keep going. You're doing mostly well, and I wish you the best of luck. Thanks again for being a part of this. It means a lot to me. And I'll see you in the next episode. The bucket of the well proved to not be a bucket at all, but rather a shape-shifting monster. Its large, fanged maw with acidic saliva and its extremely sticky slime nearly brought doom upon you. You are somewhat hurt from this, but luckily you were able to avoid any serious injuries. The thing's ground speed is incredibly slow. Meanwhile, your speed is currently enhanced by magic, as you concentrate upon your expeditious retreat spell. Rather than be kited around to its death, the creature crawled inside the well. You believe you know what this creature is. It is called a mimic, a rather apt name. It can take on the appearance of objects, and, well, that is about all you can recall in terms of lore. You throw Lucia a glance, the two of you go bounding back down the shadowy corridor, through the great hall, into the entry chamber. You step up to the iron door and speak the names of the ill-fated twins, Elena and Alana. Nothing noticeable happens. You try the door, and it is still locked. You recall that your detect magic picked up no magical effects on this door, just the star door on the other side of the room. The iron door even has a keyhole, after all. You are tempted to take a breather for a little while, since the ambush in the well room went so poorly for you. You go to the Great Hall and sit down, checking to make sure you are not wounded worse than you thought. No, you are in some pain, but it's nothing too serious. After a few minutes pass, you realize how much faster you are than the mimic, and your Ray of Frost spell that Zdravno taught you can strike foes at a decent range. It would be a safe bet to try to eliminate the monster through a combination of magic and outmaneuvering. What motivates you even more is the thought that if you leave the mimic alone for any significant amount of time, it will surely relocate, take on the form of something else, and try to ambush you again. You have gone partway down the dim corridor, and you notice a pile of old clothing that had not been there before. And is it moving ever so slowly across the floor? This damn thing is already setting up for another attack. You cast your icy ray from a range of 60 feet. The pile of old clothes shifts a bit as the ray strikes it, indirectly enough that the thing's natural armor keeps it from harm. It moves back, westward, into the well room. You follow behind it, but play it safe by not getting too close. You release another white-blue ray. You err on the side of caution, which unfortunately causes your ray to strike against the stone archway and not extend into the room. The pile of clothes slugs across the well room and prepares to crawl back in. You cast once again. Once more, the monster's hide foils the Ray of Frost. It reaches out a pseudopod in the form of a dirty cloak and pulls itself into the well. You curse aloud at your poorly aimed rays. If you approach close to the well, you'll get a better look down to shoot at the monster. But if it is waiting near the lip to spring onto you, things could get very dicey. Looking about, you wonder if you can find a better vantage point by climbing up the wall. The masonry here does have some stones that jut out slightly. You take hold of your wand with your teeth and try to get up the wall. The climbing is difficult, mostly by fingertips and the very toes of your shoes. You don't make it up. You look at the well, making sure the thing is not trying anything else. It's hidden well enough to remain out of sight. You seek out another path up the masonry stones and try again. Aha! Up you go, until your feet reach the level that your head had been at. You look from the higher point of view. You see the mimic, at least its topmost portion. The pile of old clothes shifts color, texture, and shape, now seeming to be a chunk of stonework that blends well with the surroundings. It moves slowly downward to get out of your line of sight. You take advantage of the opportunity. You drop down from the wall and expediently sprint over to the well. You chant your quick phrase of icy power and send another ray of frost, this time down the shaft. The magical frost strikes and freezes the thing, nearly freezes it in place. You take a couple swift strides back and stay safely out of its range. Due to your spell, the mimic climbs slow as a snail, scarcely reaching the lip of the well. You attack without hesitation. You fail to hit with the ray once again, and expeditiously reposition yourself more than 30 feet away from the well. The mimic, in guise of a chunk of masonry, comes out of the well, and instead of trying to pursue you, it heads in the direction of the stairs. You cast the cantrip again and again as you pursue the fleeing mimic. You hit it a few times, slowing its flight through the wine cellar, and then the winding tunnel beyond. Down the sloping tunnel you go, keeping after the monster, sending out more rays and, unfortunately, missing with most of them. The thing proves quite hardy, as it shows no sign of being seriously wounded. It comes to the water's edge in the cave below, with the endless spill of the waterfall creating little rippling waves that reach the stony bank. You curse at the shape-shifting creature and fire a set of magic missiles at it, hoping to stop it before it gets into the lake. The seeming chunk of stone and mortar quivers and makes a pained squeal, but it does not stop moving. It parts the water and drives forward, slipping under the surface. You send another ray at the thing, hoping against hope. The frost magic strikes the water, doing little more than causing the thinnest crusting of ice that melts away in the next instant. The mimic is escaping into the water. You could go in after it, or you could wait. You're not certain, but you do not think it can breathe water. It will probably try to emerge in some far, dim corner of the cave, newly camouflaged with a suitable form. Perhaps you will spot it when it does emerge, but you figure your chances of that are not great. You brace up for the cold water and wade in a few steps. You stick your face into the water, looking for the thing as best you can in the murky dim. You have already lost visual contact with the mimic. Perhaps it won't bother you anymore, with as much as you struck it with arcane blasts. Your pondering is cut short right then, as a large form is suddenly nearby. You pull your face from the water, just as a large, scaly head comes at you, with its fanged jaws open to bite. A gasp escapes your lips, and you shuffle backwards defensively. Once again, your knack for alertness has kept you safe, and you are able to get away from the lake. Rising up is a long-necked reptilian monster, some giant water serpent whose jaws are filled with sharp fangs. It is difficult to make out the exact shape of the creature, but it is certainly much bigger than you. Suppressing the urge to scream in terror, you bolt up the sloping tunnel. Back in the wine cellar, you stop to catch your breath. Whatever that thing was, it was very large and looked incredibly dangerous. Once you are confident that nothing has followed you up the tunnel, you take a closer look at the wine racks. One of the wine racks has obviously been pilfered of a number of wine bottles, which must have been the devil's doing. Scrutinizing up close, you notice that fallen back there behind the left-hand wine rack is a small wooden box, the right size to hold a single bottle of wine. It's easy to retrieve with your mage hand, but otherwise it would have been very difficult to get to, as it is behind a rack of about 60 bottles of wine. Inside the little box is indeed a bottle of wine and a scrap of paper that bears your initials. The bottle's label features an 8-pointed star and reads Grand Chateau Vineyard, Frost Wine. There are also 3 arcane runes carved into the inside of the box's lid. Underneath each rune is a word: rowboat, sailboat, and fold. You think about what this might be. These seem to be command words, and although you do not have specific knowledge or experience with this box, it appears straightforward enough. You head back to the Great Hall to rest and examine the object further. Back in the large commons area, under the watchful gaze of Vlorgenthrix, you rest for a time. Your expeditious retreat expires, returning your movement back to normal.
Vlorgenthrix, are you aware of the lake monster down in the Waterfall Cave?
There is a Waterfall Cave under this castle? Surely you jest.
It is no jest. Down, past the wine cellar, there is a magnificent cave with a waterfall.
I would be most pleased to behold such sights. But here is where I must stay, and I am glad to uphold my duty without complaint.
I chased a shape-shifting monster into the water, only to come across a much larger and more fearsome creature. Some kind of great water serpent or sea serpent. I ran for my life.
Of course you did. An apprentice wizard, alone in a place such as this. I am impressed that you have not gotten yourself killed yet.
But Volorgenthrix is not much for conversation, which he regards as largely a distraction. You doze off for a short while, then come back to alertness, feeling somewhat recuperated. You perform another detect magic ritual in order to have a different sort of look at the box and whatever else you might come across for the next 10 minutes. Upon reaching out with your arcane senses, you see a moderate aura of transmutation magic on the box. Indeed, it seems to have been constructed to be able to shift into a rowboat or a sailboat or to fold back into a box. The bottle of frost wine with the 8-pointed star on the label is not magical.
Volorgenthrix, do you know the hour?
It is 20 minutes until 5 in the morning. Dawn is a little over an hour away.
There is something you are wanting to try in the cemetery, and you head that way. As you pass through the throne room, you observe that the fire in the hearth has completely died out, leaving nothing but ashes. Through the courtyard and into the cemetery you go. It is cold and very dark outside. You approach one of the smaller headstones on the eastern side of the graveyard. "Give me wine, and I shall grow," is what it reads. Smiling a peculiar smile to yourself, you break the wax seal on the bottle of wine, uncork it, and pour a libation onto the grave. A few moments later, a stem of a plant rises up from the grave soil. It grows to about knee height and sprouts a few leaves. Curious as it is, nothing else happens. You scratch your head and ponder what else you could try. Then an idea comes to you, a potential way to extinguish the flames in the statue room. You go to the kitchen. Your plan is to find a pot to bring to the water fountain in the courtyard and use the water to put out the fire. In fact, if you could get enough water into the statue room and flood the whole floor, perhaps the dragon's frigid breath could freeze it and create a layer of ice. That should allow you to move the warrior statue about. Ah yes, there is a large cast iron pot on the table right there. It is such an ordinary and commonplace thing, which contrasts with the more severe and dungeon-like details of the kitchen. You shiver, thinking about how Zdravno's uncle Casimir murdered his grandfather here in this very room with the cleaver. What a morose family. Back to the courtyard you walk. You open the door to the east, and sweltering waves of heat come pouring out. You fill up the pot at the fountain, haul it over to the open door, and toss the water in. It splashes against the huge wall of fire, causing the flames to whip and flutter. You haul another pot of water, then a third. Whew, this is exercise. The water does not seem to disturb the flames much longer than the moment in which you douse them. Your detect magic is still active, and you see a strong aura of evocation magic all about the fire. There is obviously some potent magic source that is powering these flames, not a physical fuel that can be quenched. You wonder if there is some way to dispel the fire. Nothing immediately comes to mind, but you keep your overall plan in your head as you sense that it holds promise. It is clear that Zdravno left this little box for you to find. Apparently, it is able to transform into a rowboat or a larger sailboat, and it contained a bottle of frost wine made at the Grand Chateau Vineyard, in the northwestern region of your country, Magnaland. You say a short prayer to Illis the Lantern, asking the god of light and knowledge to illuminate your mind in this most confounding of mysteries.